2022. The county clerk has confirmed the roll, and we do have a quorum this evening. So the first items on the agenda this evening are the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Supervisor Powers. If you could please all stand and join me and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the invocation by Supervisor Powers.
O great Creator, we ask for guidance in our deliberations tonight in the service of the people of Winnebago County. We thank you for the continued healing of John, our county executive, and we offer prayers for county employee Emily, a CNA at Parkview, who suffered many complications postnatally. We ask you, in whose perfect kingdom no sword is drawn but the sword of righteousness, no strength is known but the strength of love, guide the nations of the world into the way of justice and truth, and establish among them that peace which is the fruit of righteousness. Amen.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt this evening's agenda. For that, I will call on Supervisor Ulrich.
I move to adopt this evening's agenda. Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt this evening's agenda. Any discussion? And just for awareness for everyone, there is one presentation listed, but Director Francoeur asked for that to be removed, so we will not have that presentation, but otherwise the agenda is as it stands. Any other discussion in terms of the motion and second to adopt this evening's agenda? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's the time during each meeting. Supervisor Norton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, I don't know about everybody else, I don't have a hard written copy of the agenda, and when I went to the website just now, all I get is the agenda. I don't get a copy of the resolutions, and I guess, I don't know if any other employers have the same problem. Is there a copy of the packet of the resolution? Because I don't have them.
We'll make sure that we get you some hard copies. Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Very good. So we're now at this time during the agenda in which we give an opportunity for the public to speak for any item on the agenda this evening or any item under county jurisdiction. I'll open it up for anyone from the public who wishes to speak. First, we'll start with those individuals who are here in person from the public, and once we're finished with that, we'll turn to the Zoom call and see if there's anyone from the public on the Zoom call who wishes to speak. So I'll open it up. Is there anyone from the public in person tonight who wishes to speak? If so, please go ahead and you can step to the mic. And if you could please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Matt Mickelson. I live at 906 Winnebago Avenue in Oshkosh.
Now, the only item I want to make sure you understand is if you don't speak into the mic, then unfortunately the public, because we do record this, would be unable to hear you. So if we could please open up the mic. Your mic should be open now, sir.
Thank you. Matt Mickelson of 906 Winnebago Avenue in Oshkosh. I'm here to quickly discuss about the article that I read in the Northwestern today criticizing John Damel. I was disappointed about some of the comments that were in there, calling him an adversarial leader. At one point, I was having an issue with the clerk of courts and one of the employees that worked there in an adversarial circumstance, and had reached out to a couple different board members as well as other people with the that work for the county, and did not find resolution. This was a couple years ago. Fortunately, with the new clerk of courts, that issue is resolved significantly, thankfully. My concern with the article this morning, it seems like there was a comment in the article about you guys having final authority to run the county. I think you forget that we, the citizens, the constituents of this county, have the final authority over you as to decide whether you shall stay here or not. And there is a movement, and hopefully it will continue to grow, for us to hold you guys accountable in your seats. I've had some criticisms for some of you over the time. and have called out some of those people, and unfortunately that has not resulted in a positive effect. But I'm looking here to open lines of communication so you guys can work positively with John Damel. I voted for John, as well as a majority of the people that voted, for specific reasons. I appreciate about him that I've seen him in 2 county meetings, in offices. One of them was in the administration building, and he's very strong-willed. I like that about him. We have some similar principles. One of the biggest things that I truly appreciated about him was that he intently was listening to the other people in that meeting, even though it was a controversial meeting and some of the other members of the meeting were bothered by some of the actions he had taken. I trust. Of course, it's easy for me. I'm a business owner. We have some commonalities in those respects. But I especially appreciated that he did an excellent job, in my opinion, of listening to the opposition in the meeting. I would hope that some of the comments that the Northwestern put out would be looked over and put aside by the public. I do not believe him to be adversarial. I believe him to be trying to make changes as he sees fit, and I think it's inappropriate of some of the board members that were mentioned in this article this morning saying what they said. And you know what? Thankfully, they are stepping down. And I think maybe the phrase, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, is applying here. Maybe they are getting out of the kitchen. Anyways, I'm sorry to be pointed on this, but this article moved me so much to be here tonight. This is the second meeting that I've been to in the county in the 16 years that I've lived here. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening? Please, sir, if you could just step to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Ramos, Vice Chair Egan, and fellow supervisors here. My name is Steve Bartell. I live at 1436 West Creek Lane in the village of Fox Crossing. And I've come here tonight to speak on behalf of my whole neighborhood. We have a petition signed with 95% of the residents, including residents that live on Irish Road, just south of Highway 10. So we have a very united front. The problem we have, sir and ladies and gentlemen, is a quality of life issue. That's what it really boils down to. It affects the entire well-being of our entire neighborhood. It all centers around trying to live in peace and quiet. The main problem is a severe, excessive, continuous, and prolific highway noise on US 10, caused mostly by semi-truck traffic. At times, it's totally unbearable. We experience vibrations within our homes, wall decor rattles, empty trailers bounce on the roadway and the bumps on Highway 10, and we can't even sleep at night in the summertime with our windows open because of the traffic noise. Directly related to that is the fact that a lot of semis jake brake or engine brake as they're exiting off south onto CB or onto Interstate 41. So every hour you hear 2 or 3 trucks jake braking, and that's an extremely loud and an annoying sound, especially when you're trying to sleep. The highway opened up in 1997. My neighbor here has the graph that I produced. In 1998, there were only 4,000 vehicles on Highway 10. Our subdivision was put in approximately 2003, a few years after the highway opened. 22 years later now, the last traffic count by DOT, there's almost 23,000 vehicles. That's a 412.5% increase in traffic. Now, I'm sure when our subdivision was put in back in '03, no one ever anticipated that much traffic on US 10. My only guess is it's going to be, going up in the future. So it's become an extremely bad problem. This problem has been in existence for over 10 years now in our subdivision. The solution, ultimately, the best solution to fix the highway noise is a sound barrier wall. We know sound barrier walls are expensive. I've had many phone calls with the DOT. They're very expensive. But what we're hoping as a neighborhood is a collaborative effort between Winnebago County, the village of Fox Crossing, and the state of Wisconsin. I've already talked to Supervisors Finch, Albrecht, and future board member Nate Gustafson behind me here. And I've spoken twice with our state representative, Rachel Cabral Guevara's office. And they seem very, very supportive. Last night I spoke at the Fox Crossing board meeting, and all the trustees seem very supportive of our cause. So we're hoping that funds would become available down the road. We know it may take a while, but we're hoping that all three political entities, the village, the county, and the state can come together and have us built a sound wall between Irish Road and CB, that section of the highway. We just, in our subdivision, we just want to be treated as equals. Most places in the county and the village where there's neighborhoods have sound walls, and we have no sound wall. When the interchange of Highway 10 and Interstate 41 was completed a number of years ago, and the DOT told me this, the project stopped at CB. Everything west of CB, even though we live 1 block away from CB, everything was excluded from the project. So the DOT is washing their hands of helping us with the sound barrier wall. Another thought that we had as a neighborhood, the infrastructure bill was just recently passed by the federal government. We're hoping that maybe in addition to the three political entities coming together, that maybe there could be some funds from the infrastructure bill that was just passed to help fund that sound barrier wall too. And the last thing that we need, ladies and gentlemen, is signage that Winnebago would produce regulating and prohibiting jake braking on Highway 10 east of Irish Road as trucks exit. It's my understanding, I have the ordinance in my folder here, that the county is responsible for signage on the roadways and also traffic enforcement. So if we get some signage on Highway 10 prohibiting jake braking or engine braking, that would go a long way as well for peace and quiet in our neighborhood. Again, we implore you to take this up as a cause. And I fully intend on meeting with some of these supervisors that I just mentioned in the future, in a few weeks, and sit down and have some individual meetings. But I thank you for your time and for listening. We really appreciate it, but we need some help, and we appreciate anything you can do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else from the public in person who wishes to speak this evening? Please, if you could step forward to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Shauna Zastera. I'm running for the 32nd District. That area includes Nakaimai, Black Wolf, as well as the east section of Utica. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. However, I would like to take the opportunity to communicate regarding property rights and water retention. I've been to, and I didn't get permission to give the name of this person. Do you need my address, sir?
Yes, your name and address.
1882 Clairville Road.
Thank you.
So I will not share his name, but I would like to describe the situation, because this is the second time I've been to his home. And yesterday there was also Glenn Bartles there as well. And I just simply took notes. I would like to just share some notes with you to be brief. So this individual has met with many people. Some of the people involved have been Tom Egan, Mr. Damel, Jerry Bougie, Carrie Rowe, Mr. Defferding, Mr. Zeller, and Ms. Gabbert. So I'm just explaining that because he's been working very, very hard. This has to do with the history of the flood plan, which began in September 2021, he said. He explained that the city hired Strand Associates to do a study. The city, and this may not all be totally accurate, I'm still getting verification from him on this. The city then wanted the town of Nakai to approve it. Then the city sent it to FEMA, who approved it. Then FEMA sent it to the DNR, who refused approval until they could regulate it, control it. The board sent it back to zoning to be reviewed possibly, then COVID happened. Now this individual just bought, a section of acreage, and that is his retirement. He doesn't have a 401k, and he has done extensive, methodical, meticulous work on this issue. The amount of information he has collected is staggering. At one point, he said that the city engineer, and this has to do with water retention and going out into the country and, the retention pond at Radloff's, that issue. At one point, he said the city engineer indicated that he did not have answers that this person was searching for to prove that the land that they wanted to take control over would hold water, and that it did, in fact, needed to be in the flood plan. And this person told the engineer not to have answers is unacceptable. He's looking for facts. He went on to ask then, after his research and lack of evidence, what's the plan for? And where's the data that shows how the land stores water? We looked at various maps last night. These two individuals know the area like the back of their hand and had lots to discuss. A map I saw showed what seems like an arbitrary zoning north of Jerry Phillips' old farm, which has restrictions, whereas the south side of the city land on the railroad side does not have any restrictions, as far as I can understand, which is, and it's just right across the road, and that's city controlled. So this person sent a more asserting email at the end of October with an unsatisfactory response. This individual and Glenn Bartles indicate the solution is to clean out Sawyer Creek. The problem is within the city and needs to be taken care of within the city. We looked at a map of the water around and within the city. We also talked about the city and what I would call downplaying large culverts' effect on water distribution. This person touched on risk grading 2.0, equity in action, which is based on a community rating system where certain tasks or changes that are made are rewarded, and talked about the 10% discount that this city does not want to lose. So I was just learning about this. Risk grading 2.0 completely changes flood insurance system. This person determined that there is no one in the city or county, I'm not sure which, who is in charge of the significant issue of flood insurance. That's what he told me. This person has tried for months to get the city to respond. Well, actually over a year. Well, but I would say months because I have it in writing. He made many calls to planning and zoning with no response. He pointed out that the flood map they have is from way back in 2003. He said that the situation is at a standstill now. He does not know if his land is going to have controls placed on it. He's in wait. But there are many people that are really upset about it because I've been, knocking doors for the campaign and so on. And my question is, why can and why is the city avoiding the redoing of Sawyer Creek? And why instead are they branching out into the country? And I just think that this is an important situation. I grew up on a farm, and it is something that I would like to learn more about. And please forgive me, I'm not an expert on it, but I'm just relaying and advocating his concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public in person this evening who wishes to speak? Please, if you could step to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Madeline Arms, and I live in North Main Street. I attend Oshkosh North High School as a part of the class of 2024. I would like to begin by thanking every one of you for allowing me this opportunity to share my experiences growing up as a person of color in Oshkosh. Today, I come to you with experiences that have the potential to open your hearts in the way they did mine. I ask that you contemplate the severity of racism and its impact on our community and what you can do to enforce change on these issues. My most predominant family connections are with my white family members. I've attended schools where I often found myself the only black child in a room full of white students, and for many years I attended a church of a nearly all-white congregation. Though I led my life raised and surrounded by white people, the color of my skin was nonetheless the root cause of repeated instances of harassment and racism during my enrollment in the Oshkosh Area School District. I was called several degrading anti-black slurs on a near daily basis during my 7th grade year in particular. This mistreatment got to a point where going to specific classes became a burden that I felt isolated me from my white friends. I constantly found myself wondering why I was often singled out in comparison to people who didn't have the same skin color as me. When those issues were brought to the Dean of Students, he gave minimal behavioral reprimand. The harassment ceased for a short time before recurring yet again. Internalized anti-blackness, not only toward myself, but also onto the view of other black people, stemmed from my frustration and disappointment. This got to a point where I began to attempt to accept racism from my classmates to be likable by those same students who viewed me as inferior. I grew to convince myself this behavior was something I would have to grow to accept as a part of daily life. During the summer of 2020, I, along with many of my closest friends, role models, classmates, and other members of the black community, began to share our exposure to racism. Throughout this period, I gained a sense of self-worth and began to work past misinformation of my childhood and early teen years. I no longer recognize racism as ordinary, rather as an unacceptable epidemic that affects people worldwide, nationwide, statewide, all the way down to our very communities. Age 11 was not the last time that I faced racism, nor was age 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16. Today, in a meeting for our Black Student Union at North High School, our BSU president, Amaya Hoagland, asked us how many of us had experienced racism directly. In a room of well over 50 black students, only 5 or 6 hands remained down. This was just a handful of what was discussed. 7 people had spoken out about being racially profiled in stores such as Walmart or Target. 2 girls had recalled white customers at their jobs asking to be served by different employees completely unprovoked. A white man called the police on a black boy for simply walking in a neighborhood near the boy's home, unjustified. One girl even described being pulled into a meeting with several other black girls, and they were told that they didn't live in inner city Milwaukee and needed to adjust their middle schooler behavior. This happened to be at the same middle school I attended as well. The list went on. I've come to the understanding that many of you have never been given a proper chance to create a conversation with minorities such as myself, though it may be the most straightforward choice to turn a blind eye and make a decision that continues to affect others negatively. You are given a second chance tonight after hearing just a sliver of what it's like to be black in Winnebago County, to make a change. For the sake of minorities, both young and old in Oshkosh and in other cities in Winnebago County, please consider approving diversity affairs bylaws and plans to improve the current state of our county. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could do one more thing for me, your mic was off when, unfortunately, we didn't have it on in time. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Alrighty. That is Madeline Arndt at 1708 North Main Street.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening? Please, if you can step to the mic and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Jacob Flom, and I live at 503 North Main Street here in Oshkosh. One of the things that I'm talking about tonight, actually the only thing, is something that the county can do to counteract the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I come from a family of Polish and Jewish origin, so unfortunately for those groups of people, Russian aggression is not something that is uncommon. It is very common throughout history. One of the things that I would respectfully request that the county do is to take a look at the pensions and the contracts that they may have with Russian firms that are within the Russian Federation, and propose an idea, an ordinance perhaps, to have those liquidated and those contracts terminated, and to have that done without reinstating them in the future. It's something that has been very, very disheartening to see this act of aggression. There's not a whole lot we can do about it here at the county level, but if you can divest from Russian assets, if you can divest from Russian contracts, if you have them, I would respectfully ask that the county do so. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public in person who wishes to speak this evening? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening in person? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to the Zoom call. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on the Zoom call tonight? I see a couple of hands up. If so, by the way, please go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. So first, I'll call on the individual under the name County Resident Guest. Please go ahead, your mic is open. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Tamar Mathwig. I live at 895 Michigan Street in Onroe.
Thank you.
All right, tonight I'm calling in regards to Resolution 282, which extends additional pay to care providers at Parkview who worked with COVID-19 positive residents. I think we can all agree they worked really hard during COVID, but this resolution omits many other county employees who also worked with COVID positive people, and they never received hazard pay. I'll just give you one example with the Winnebago County jailers. There was no hazard pay from the beginning for jailers working directly with COVID inmates. Going on 3 years now, jailers have brought COVID home to their families and their children, and were never compensated like Parkview staff have been. Jailers have contracted COVID several times, risking illness or death, and have never received hazard pay. Resolution 282 states tremendous demands have been placed on the staff of Parkview Health Center to maintain a safe environment, and that is very respectable. However, many other county employees have also been put under tremendous demands during this COVID time as well, and they're not receiving hazard pay. Resolution 282 goes on to say that the number of residents who have tested positive for COVID is increasing, and the staff is basically at risk of transmission of the virus. Again, they're not the only ones in the county that are employees risking getting COVID, working with COVID positive people. So it's really difficult at this point to see why so many groups of people are being left out of what the care providers at Parkview are receiving in hazard pay or bumps in pay. So I would hope this resolution gets voted down, or perhaps consider giving all county employees who work with COVID positive people some type of hazard pay. Please do not leave out other county employees who have risked their health and death from COVID just to be able to serve this county. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. I see one other hand up. Jennifer Kozer, please go ahead and we'll open your mic. If you could state your name and address for the record, please, you have the floor.
Can you hear me, Chairman Ramos?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Jennifer Kozer. I'm at 5872 Harbor South Drive in Winnebago. A few things tonight. I wanted to say just a few things. First of all, regarding Resolution 277, authorize the creation of a Winnebago County ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission. I would like to ask the board to please vote yes for that resolution. And then regarding resolutions number, 281, which extends project positions in the Public Health Department, and resolution 282 for extending additional pay to care providers at Parkview. I ask you to please vote no for those resolutions. And finally, for resolution number 268 to approve diversity affairs bylaws and strategic plan, I ask that you please vote no for that resolution as well. And I would like to say a little bit about that. Last month, so it was Thursday, February 3rd, 2022, I listened to the Diversity Affairs Commission's latest guest speaker, Dr. Demira Grady, and I actually wrote out a summary of the events that I created from my notes, and I sent that to the board members through an email a couple weeks ago. but there were board members who don't have email addresses, so I'm going to read what I sent so that they can hear that as well. So this is a summary of that event with Dr. Demira Grady. First of all, during her speech, Dr. Grady mentioned resources a few times. She said that resources are needed in order to get community representation for minorities. She used billboards and television ads as an example of how to get the word out about minorities. And so my question was about that. So minorities need resources or money in order to pay for advertising. And she said that one of the ways to get these resources was through nonprofits. And she said nonprofits can share resources with minorities so that they can protest for their rights. Dr. Grady also mentioned during her speech the subject of strategic plans. And now the DAC wants to have, the Diversity Affairs Commission wants to have their strategic plan approved tonight. That's one of the things they want approved. So I thought that this was important. She said that when it comes to strategic plans, one of the biggest issues is that people think of belonging and economic mobility as two separate things. And I thought that that was pretty interesting. Also, Dr. Grady said during her speech that she has worked in schools, and she stated that one of the schools she worked at, the principal of that school told her, and this is a quote, "I made the school more racist by the conversations I was having." So she stated that during her speech. And then regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is also known as DEI, Dr. Grady said, and this is a quote, "DEI is big business." And then she said, "Usually when people are opposed to DEI, it is because they feel they will lose something. They need to be reassured they will get their needs met." Also, a large portion of the event time was used for Dr. Grady to answer questions from the public. So here are a few examples. Supervisor Norton asked a question of Dr. Grady. He asked her how to deal with the pushback that himself and Supervisor Steve Binder and the DAC are getting from people who are saying, quote, "We don't need diversity. We already have diversity things in this county." Supervisor Norton said that as a white Anglo-Saxon male, he needs to hear from people of different diversity of colors, religious backgrounds, etc. And what should he reply when others say that the DAC is not needed at all? So the following quotes are part of Dr. Grady's response to this question. Here's the first quote. She stated, "I think it's important for there to be an overarching group that cascades to maybe different groups to share resources, and that can go up and down. It's when things start happening in silos where our opposition to the work really has place to pick holes, where you don't agree with that person or you're doing this work, but they don't agree with that. It's like, how can we be in solidarity with each other? And so oftentimes diversity becomes getting the others who don't care about the work or don't see the value in DEI to agree or to come to our trainings. But oftentimes it's us being in solidarity, retooling, retraining, having difficult conversations, and picking pieces where we have practitioner experience, lived experience, or expertise to go out and gather people, right? And have influence. So I think there needs to be committees, but I'd also caution you." And she went on from there. The second quote from her answer to this question was, "If you don't have a why, if you don't have a really collective mission and vision, and you haven't engaged the people impacted, sometimes people should be sometimes people just should be left alone because you could be doing more harm and triggering them. So I say it's a yes stand. It really depends on the structure of the council committee, the work it's doing, who's at the table, how you are making sure there is equal voice, not just inviting people from the communities in to listen to you, but amplifying their voices and giving them space when you need to." So that was a couple of the quotes. And also there was another question asked by a young woman of color. She's a student She asked Miss Grady how she can fit in better by not having others view her in terms of her race. Miss Grady responded that the student should give herself permission to not use the language of the oppressed to describe herself. So that was that was what the event was about and what I heard during the event. My personal conclusions and opinions after listening to this event, there seems to be some controversy in what Dr. Grady is saying. On one hand, she wants minorities to have more resources in order to protest their rights and gain representation for themselves. On the other hand, she suggested to a young woman that she not use language of the oppressed to describe herself. So does this mean that if you're a minority, you should only consider or describe yourself as such if there's something to be gained from it? That was the question that I had. Finally, there did not seem to be much of substance within the presentation, which echoes other Diversity Affairs Commission's meetings and events that I have attended. Many of the concepts, such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, and resources, are very vague, and the DAC doesn't seem to have many tangible ideas about how to promote their message, aside from sponsoring events like these where people can converse about these topics. I'd also like to say about the Diversity Affairs Commission in general. At last month's meeting, Supervisor Bender stated that the DAC has not used any of the $2,500 that they have been budgeted. That's great. However, at the DAC meetings in April and May of 2021, so last year when they were first getting started, there were several members of the Winnebago County Health Department who attended those meetings and were participating in the meetings. Those meetings run from 3 o'clock to 4:30 in the afternoons on weekday. So unless those employees were taking long lunches, they were being paid, and that money comes from the taxpayers. So you really can't state that no taxpayer money has been spent on the Diversity Affairs Commission. Also, Supervisor Binder stated that this organization has only had 9 months to create bylaws and a strategic plan. Last year, when I spoke with founding members of the commission, I was told that this was a group that had been meeting unofficially for years. So this group was not completely new when it was created, and in all this time that they have been meeting, which is years, they still have not had anything tangible and measurable that they want to accomplish. So in conclusion, I ask you to please vote no to approving the bylaws and strategic plan for the Diversity Affairs Commission. I also ask that this commission be dissolved before any more taxpayer money can be spent on the organization. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. I see Supervisor Finch, you have your hand up. Once we get down on the agenda, reports from committees, commissions, and boards, we'll certainly call on you, Supervisor Finch. Just didn't want you to think we were ignoring you, Supervisor Finch. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening who is on Zoom? If so, please go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on Zoom this evening? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak this evening on Zoom? If so, please raise your Zoom hand. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the agenda. We'll move on to the next item, which is correspondence. For that, I'll call in Clerk Ertmer.
Thank you, Chairman Ramos. We just have a petition for zoning amendment tonight from Bradley A. Lind in the town of Black Wolf, requesting a rezoning from A2, B2, and R1 and B3 to A2, B3 for commercial and residential property. And this is referred to planning and zoning.
Thank you, Clerk Ertmer. Next, we'll move on to the next item, which is reports from committees, commissions, and boards. So first, I'll recognize Supervisor Finch. Please go ahead, Supervisor Finch. And if you could please go ahead and open up your mic, Supervisor Finch.
Better. Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you well now.
Okay. No disrespect to anybody, but we had a rule for either us or even the people out in the audience, 2 minutes to discuss their ways. Now, no disrespect to anybody, like I said, but if we allow people to go 4, 5, 8 minutes, you know, we're going to have hour and a half, and we won't even get onto the agenda because of this. So I respectfully ask that we go back to that 2-minute rule. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments, Supervisor Finch. Next, I'll call on Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Snyder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Winnebago County Safe Streets Initiative Drug Court was started January 1st, 2006. On Thursday, February 3rd, 2022, I attended the drug court graduation of the 150th to the 153rd graduates by Zoom. The purpose of the Winnebago County Safe Streets Initiative is community safety, seeking a balance between punishment and rehabilitation by providing alternatives to incarceration. The current chairperson of the Safe Streets Committee is Winnebago County Court Commissioner Brian Kieberline. If there's any questions, you're welcome to address them to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Next speaker is Supervisor Snyder, followed by Supervisor Gabbard. Please go ahead, Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was privileged to attend my last NACO legislative conference in Washington, D.C. from February 11th through the 15th. And I went there, it was kind of bittersweet. Since I'm not running for re-election, I had to give up my chairmanship of the NACO Veterans and Military Service Committee. I knew it, I had to do it, but something happened during that meeting in the very beginning that just blew me away. The president of NACO walked in the room and said he had something he needed to say, made about 5 minutes of some amazingly flattering remarks. He made me cry is what he did. And they presented me with a flag that was flown over the Capitol that was procured by Senator Baldwin because Joe Wallach and I have been working with her since about 2017 on 2 bills, one of which has been passed and the other one's in both houses right now. And they also gave me an engraved gavel. And Larry Johnson, the president, said, you take that gavel home and show Paula, my wife, and tell her you're in charge and then report back to me on how that goes. So I did. And she said, okay, Tom, you can be in control of your computer room as long as you pick up that mess on the floor. So anyway, end of report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Next speaker is Supervisor Gabbard. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbard.
Chairman Ramos, I just wanted to mention to anyone running for the county board, we have an aviation committee meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 at the new General Aviation Building, so you're all welcome to come. You can come either on Zoom or in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbard. And just to ensure, is there any county board supervisor on Zoom who has any reports for any committees, commissions, and board, beyond who has already spoken? I see one other call in person. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give a very brief report on the WCA and the NACO events that I attended. At the WCA, it was very informative, but basically what I got out of it, and Tom Snyder got out of it, and I think a couple of people, is that we are getting older as a state population, and we have a shortage of population too, meaning we're not populating as fast as we can. And Mark O'Connell said, hey, go out and get babies. Well, even if we all have babies, it's going to take 15 to 20 years to get them to work for us or work for. So that's what I got from them. At the NACO conference, at my my human service and education meeting, I found a couple of different things that people would be interested in. On the Winnebago County Human Service website, there are people who want to get the child tax credit. There are tools that help them get that, because you have to now, to get that, you have to apply, you have to submit a tax return for that. And the second thing that might be of interest that I found that on the NACO website, they now have a part of the website that tracks every project that's done with ARPA funds. It's broken down by state, city or county, and even broken down if it's a recreational or whatever. So that's on the NACO site. And I do got to say, Mr. Chairman, I think the highlight, and we also heard from the president and a bunch of people on Monday from the administration, but I think the highlight we all heard about is when our fellow, my colleague, Supervisor Tom Snyder, got honored. He's a veteran. He got honored for many years of service to veterans. He, to his not dying, from the last minute he's on this board, he's going to be helping veterans. He got through my committee, NACO, the Community Service Veterans Organization. I'm probably mispronouncing that. And even when we met veterans organizations, when they have this people before the one of the opening sessions, he's talking to help veterans in business. I think that we in this county, veterans in this country, should salute and honor our own Supervisor Tom Snyder.
Thank you, Supervisor. Very good. Are there any other reports from any commissions and boards, from any county board supervisor? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, and that's the approval of the proceedings from the January 18th, 2022 board meeting. Is there a motion? There's a motion, and there's a second. Please, Supervisor Cox, any adjustments or changes to the minutes? Okay, very good. So you have the floor. So we do have a motion and a second. So please go ahead.
Change to the adjournment of the meeting on January 18th. Apparently, I'm going to get to that page. Apparently, we had Mr. Albrick excused, and I made the motion, and it was seconded by Mr. Farley.
Very good. Thank you for
Close
that
the meeting.
clarification, Supervisor Cox. We'll ensure that that's corrected. Thank you, Supervisor Cox. Any other changes or corrections to the minutes from January 18th, 2022 board proceedings? Seeing none, with that correction, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item. That's County Executive's Report. You have the floor, Executive Damo.
I'd like to thank everybody for the well wishes during my recovery. I know Clerk Ertmer yelled at me for being in the office last Thursday. She is becoming very quickly my county mother, and I'm happy to have you as such. I want to talk about a couple of resolutions that are coming forward tonight. First, I want to talk about the County Government Month for April. I am in support of this, and it just being on the agenda is enough for me to take action on this. So we're already planning on doing this. If you follow the essence of Youth Government Day, I think we really have a great opportunity to highlight exactly what county government does, and I think it's a great idea. My only recommendation would be to amend this to make it perpetually going forward, that we do this every April, that we go forward and we tell the citizens exactly what we do, because I think it's a story that needs to be told. The second thing I wanted to talk about is the resolution put forth to create an ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission. The vision of this is to have us elected officials and community members get together to provide guidance on how we spend ARPA dollars. It may feel like we are behind in this process, but I assure you we are not. The final guidance has just been issued. Any counties that are out there that have spent ARPA dollars has been in the thousands and not in the millions. We do have some time for this. There are no predetermined processes listed in this, and I've had a lot of questions on that coming out. That is by design. That is not up to me to determine how this commission will function. That is up to this commission to decide and create the mechanisms of which people are to come forward and have requests how we look into the projects that we will consider. I wanted nothing more than to have the amount of people that were going to be on this commission, and so that we can get this going, so that as a group we can determine what the best practices will be going forward. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to predetermine what those were. We have to do that together. So I encourage you all to give this some thought, so that we can get started with this. I look forward to working with you on this commission and some community members out there. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of work to be done, and $33 million may seem like a lot, and don't get me wrong, it is. It can be gone in a flash. So we have to make sure that we are making the best decisions going forward, that we have the best return on our investments, because we will be paying this for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Damo. Next item on the agenda is County Board Chairman's report. Just a few things. So first of all, Supervisor Weiss, Supervisor Defferding, and Supervisor Shorsey did ask to be excused this evening. I did want to make sure everyone know that District 16, as you can see, there's not a recommended appointment on the agenda. And that's simply, as you know, I kind of gave you an update last time. I do know that there is an interested candidate who's doing a writing campaign, who's very passionate and has some experience. So I do know that there's interest in the area. But I just wanted to make you all aware. And I did let that individual know. We touched base again as well between the last meeting and this one as well. Also wanted to let individuals know with the next meeting, it's actually only 2 weeks from now, March 15th. So the plan would be that it would be here in the courthouse again. So it'll definitely be in person. We're still deciding whether it'll be in person and hybrid Zoom. We also wanted to see how this would work this evening. It seems to be working fairly well, but we will certainly make a determination and make you aware of what it'll be. But it will definitely be back here in the courthouse in 2 weeks. So just making everyone aware of that. Then I want to recognize again Supervisor Snyder. You know, as Supervisor Norton said, he was honored at NACO for his leadership and his service over so many years. And he was actually honored by the VA Deputy Secretary, actually Remy, and the NACO president, as Supervisor Norton said. And he, as he said, he received that flag and he received a gavel. There is a picture. I'm going to try to make sure that I can send this hopefully to the board so you can all see it. The only thing I'm a little disappointed on is I think you deserved a bigger gavel, Supervisor Snyder, in that, because of all the service you have done and the passion you have shown to your job here on this board and to everyone over so many years that I've had the opportunity to work with you. So I just wanted to say kudos and thank you to you as well once again for that. So another round of applause. Supervisor Snyder, certainly deserving of it. So. Just one or two other things as well. Actually, one more thing. It was brought up about county board rules, and I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Well, I understand that. We do have a rule, and there's not a specific time frame in terms of for when the public speaks. There may have been in the past, but there's not in our current rules. And as all of you know, depending on the meeting and the number of public that have been here, over 300 at different times, then I've set a time limit of 2 or 3 minutes for them. But I've tried to be consistent over the 4 years that I've been chair, that one of my roles is to let the voices of this board and the public be heard. When I was looking at the screens here tonight, I knew that there were not that many from the public who would be speaking that tonight. So I wanted to give every opportunity for them to say as much as they wanted to say. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Our rule does not actually state a time limit. It does give myself as the chair the opportunity in any individual meeting to do that, but there's not a set rule in our rules for that. So, given this evening, please.
Supervisor Finch has been trying to say something.
Please, your mic is open, Supervisor Finch.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, we have a supervisor who's been on the board for quite a long time. However, he was also my supervisor at Nina Paper. Now he's got his hands over his head, but let me tell you, he's retiring, yada, 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 and he gets everyone praise. But that gentleman is one super individual, and we will definitely miss him, along with the rest of the residents of Winnebago County, as many of us retire. But I wanted to make sure that I gave him his accolades for being such a fantastic individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Now, I see one hand up, Supervisor Fari. Did you have a comment?
Not right at this time. I actually don't know how to remove it, so maybe you can
Very
do
good.
that.
I will go ahead and remove it for you, Supervisor Fari. Supervisor Schneider, please go ahead.
I do want to make it clear, I am not going to be an elected official anymore, but my advocacy for my brothers and sisters will never stop. I am still going to be on the Winnebago County Veteran Service Commission, and at this time and for the foreseeable future, I'm president of the Wisconsin State Association of County Veteran Service Commissions. So that part of me will never stop. So I appreciate all the nice words said tonight, but I will go on. Thank you.
Of that advocacy and commitment, I have no doubt. Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. Very good. So that concludes my report. So we'll move on to the next item, and that's report. Well, actually, there's a presentation that's being withdrawn from the IT director in regards to the capital improvement project. So we'll move on to the next items, which are actually the zoning reports and ordinances. We have 3 of them this evening. The first one is report number 001, Craig Pierstorff et al., Town of Winneconne. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve report number 001.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 001. Any discussion?
The discussion is just that Mr. Pierstorff owns 2 lots down right across from lakefront property along Lasley Shores Road in town of Winneconne, and he just wants to have that rezoned from R1 to R2. So.
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. Any other discussion on report number 001? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's amendatory ordinance number 020122, rezoning from R1 rural residential to R2 suburban low density residential for tax parcel numbers 030-0079-05 and 030-0079-35, parent P. I'll once again call on Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve amendatory ordinance number 020122.
Second. There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 020122. We'll open it up for any discussion. And for any county supervisor, you simply need to raise your Zoom hand. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item. That's report number 002, Jennifer Zingsheim et al., Town of Oshkosh. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Gabbard.
I move for approval of report number 002.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 002. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's amendatory ordinance number 020222, rezoning from R1, R2 rural residential / suburban low density residential to R1 rural residential for tax parcels number 018-0099-16 and 018-2190-01. I'll once again call on Supervisor Gabbard.
I move for the approval of amendatory ordinance number 020222.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 020222. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's report number 003, Mike Scharf et al., Town of Nakaimai. I'll call on Supervisor Keller on Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval, report number 003.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 003. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's amendatory ordinance number 020322, rezoning from A2 General Agriculture District to R1 Rural Residential for tax parcel number 012-0273, parent P. I'll once again call on Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of mandatory ordinance number 020322.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve a mandatory ordinance number 020322. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. That completes the zoning reports and ordinances for this evening. So we'll move on to resolutions and ordinances. We'll do the first one on the bottom of the first page. That's resolution number 268-012022. I'll call on Supervisor Snyder.
I move for the approval of resolution number 268-012022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 268-012022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Supervisor Snyder, did you have any discussion first?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Last month, it was voted to send it back to committee and make some adjustments and amendments to the language. Those were done with the help of the Corp Council and the committee, and I believe that we have everything in a satisfactory document this time. So I vote that we approve it.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Next, we'll call on Supervisor Hinz, followed by Supervisor Nussbaum. Please go ahead, Supervisor Hinz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would actually say that the amendments that we voted on were not taken into account because it still says we will make a greater effort to treat all people with the same respect we expect to receive, which says that we are not making any effort or a very minimal effort. I think that paints us in a very poor light. And in the mission statement, the part where the font was different is still different. And actually, that first sentence, we support justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, that's a direct quote. That's the second tenet of the Unitarian Universalist Church, which is a self-proclaimed liberal religion. Now, we are a nonpartisan body. I'm not going to sit and argue about the separation of church and state, which some people may do and some people may not. I'm just going to say I don't think we should be using anything from a partisan church, especially in creating a mission statement or purpose of organization or anything like that. And I want to preface this a little bit by saying I was actually part of the largest integrated group in the United States of America. I was in the United States Navy. I served on a ship with almost 1,100 people on it from all races, all creeds, all religions. I actually watched two Filipino nationals who were serving in our military as Filipino nationals go through their naturalization ceremony. And I was proud of them because I trusted those people with my life. On a ship, you can't run around. So as far as integration goes, believe me, I lived with people of all colors, races, and creed all around me. And I trusted those people every day. I wasn't here, obviously, when this group was formed. But I didn't know that we had any kind of a systemic problem. Do we have documentation of problems that we have in the county? That at the county level that we're falling short on? Are we not treating people with respect? I mean, the people I know and the people I've actually talked to in my district, I mean, I have neighbors of color that I talk to almost every other day. They're just people. I don't look at color. I believe in what Dr. King said. You don't look at the color of someone's skin, you look at the content of their character. And I treat every person that way. And I don't need a group telling me that. I know how I feel about that. But that's also how other people feel in this area. They treat people like people. Yes, I'm sorry. I mean, we heard that there are some examples of bad things. And I could say children can be cruel, and we all know that. I'm not going to blame it on just youth. People can be cruel. We can't get 100% of people to be what we want them to be. Otherwise, we don't have freedom in our country. I don't know that, this seems like it's a problem or a solution that's looking for a problem more than something that's a problem as far as our county goes. The amendments that we had voted on that were unanimously passed weren't taken into account in this, and it has the same issues that it had before, and I cannot support these bylaws going forward because it still seems like it doesn't really support or have an aim. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hintz. Next speaker is Supervisor Nussbaum, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were made in God's image, and I believe we're all equal, and we should treat each other that way. But I think a lot of this is created to cause division and to not treat everybody equally. You know, it's I would like to amend this bylaws to include a people group that is being left out and whose rights are being taken away. So I'd like to change Article 2, Section 1, at the very end, and add including those yet residing in the womb, because those are the people that don't have any rights. And if we're going to be inclusive, we got to include everyone. Thank you.
And so that was a motion, amendment,
Yes.
right? Is there a second? That motion fails for a lack of a second. Moving on to the next speaker. I'll call on Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, to Supervisor Hinch's concerns, I was at the meeting. We did approve of the amendments that we agreed to last month. I don't know why they're not in this document. I know that for a fact. I just read the minutes from that meeting yesterday, and we did approve them, because I did say to the staff person responsible said, are they in it? And they said they are. They made sure that we only had one mission statement. That's what I want to. That's why I want to say, to the point of they were not included. The other fact that he said, I guess I disagree. I think this is much needed. This group diversity. We just heard a very compelling case from someone, from one of the youth in our county, and I think there could be other cases. You know, just because they don't come to you or me every single day doesn't mean it's out there. I've heard it. I've heard similar cases as the young lady stated when she presented before to us. And I think this is an issue that is relevant in our county and all counties. I mean, major corporations in this county, Oshkosh Corporation, you know what they're having? They're having diversity councils or diversity officers. And I take a look, and I look at the cover of our Wisconsin Counties magazine, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Embracing Change to Build a Better Wisconsin. Articles, I wish people would take the time and read these articles, from someone from Eau Claire, from Brown County, I think Door County, and others. It's important because if we want to be a better Wisconsin, I think we're going to have to go and we're going to have to be more diverse. And we have to make it a more welcoming community. I answered Supervisor Stafford last month. I thought our goal was to make life better for each and every person in this county. And it hasn't. I just heard a very compelling story from someone. And I think there are other stories around this county, and not just because of race, maybe because of religious reasons and their sexual, and other things. So it's not just racial. I would look forward to working with her group. We have someone who, on our commission, who works at Oshkosh West. He's an advisor for their multicultural advisory committee. I'm looking forward to talking to the person from Oshkosh Corporation. This is what we need to do to make us a better county. Like I say, and I'll repeat it again, the changes that were made at the last minute, one of them was supervisor changes. I know, I made sure they were part of it. I asked before the meeting, and they told me that they were part of the new resolution. So I think this is much needed. You can change it. I'm willing to change. I agreed last month to these changes. I'll agree now. But I think it's time to move forward. We are kind of stuck in the mud a little bit. I think once we get this done, once we do have the internal problem that we have about, when we mediate, there are things that we can do. I'm working with other groups. Educating first, we wanted to educate both them and the public. We have another program on Thursday on Asian American. Anyone's invited. You can ask questions after CBA's presentation. So I would hopefully, I ask you to pass these bylaws and mission statement tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. I see a number of other call-ins, and including I see Supervisor Fari on Zoom, so I do have you in the queue, so you're aware, Supervisor Fari. Next speaker is Supervisor Powers, followed by Vice Chair Egan. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would disagree with Supervisor Hintz that there's no issue in this community at all. We were already told by the young woman from Oshkosh North that she has experienced this in her life, and I don't think it's fair to, or it negates her issues when we say, well, children will be children. Because children can be kind as well. They can be taught to be kind and know that that's what's expected in a community as well. I'm taking it she's about 16 now, and she's still experiencing it. I didn't have the opportunity of living on a ship with a lot of multiracial people. I don't have a lot of persons of color who are my friends. I do have one close friend who I see every week, and she has told me, she lives here in Oshkosh, she has told me of countless issues of people who have treated her in a disrespectful way, and I don't want to go into any details because it's not fair. Because I can't tell you her name because I haven't talked to her about to mention her name. But she does live in Oshkosh. She works in Oshkosh. This is an issue, and if the diversity committee gets together and works on this and finds out that there's not an issue, then we can praise ourselves and we can disband this commission and move on and say, okay, there wasn't a problem and we're okay. But I don't see how starting a committee like this diminishes any of us by looking at issues that those of us who are sitting in here who are all white have any idea what persons of color are really dealing with, outside of hearing from certain friends who told us. But I'm going to vote in favor of this, And if there are people who say, well, there's just not a problem, having a committee will not diminish your life in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker is Vice Chair Egan, followed by Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead, Vice Chair Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question of Supervisor Norton. Are you saying that there's something that's left out of this?
What I'm saying is that I am 100% sure when we met to get approval, that what's included was the two amendments that we took up. Chairman Ramos said, no, I heard we said in the last meeting, you know, you're going to have to take these up.
Mr. Chairman, we can't hear him.
His thing's not on.
When it was presented to us, they said that they were included and they were taken care of. And they were taking care of that. They also took care of the question of why we had two different mission statements and also the language. So those were taken care of. I'm 100% sure of that. I don't know why it says is what it did, but I can look at our minutes I just got and it says so, yeah.
I guess I go back, I'm not saying I'm against this, because I am, but I'm not against it, I am for it, but I ask you again, so there's things that are printed on here that we're supposed to vote on that isn't, like Supervisor Hens said, that
I mean,
they're not.
And I'm willing, Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to put those amendments, and he wants to make a motion, I'll make a motion. I understood what happened at the last meeting, and they were approved, but the chairman said we had to do it again. I have no problem with that, because that's what this board wanted, and I don't have a problem with that. I thought they were included, I will say that.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Can we vote on an issue where we don't have the actual documents to vote on?
So that's what I was going to go to next and clarify, because Corporation Counsel, please. But your point's well taken, so I know what you're asking, Supervisor Hens.
I have the version that was testing. I have the version that was addressed by the supervisors a month or two ago. And I can say, and I have their comments, and again, when the board decided to send it back to the committee, all of the comments were set aside so the committee could take it up. When, as Supervisor Norton indicated, he's saying that the committee, in fact, adopted the recommendations that were made by the supervisors. If that was the case, I can tell you that I have the wording that a number of supervisors recommended, including Supervisor Fari, including Supervisor Hens. I believe Supervisor Stafford raised an issue. So again, it really is dependent on what in fact the committee decided. I can tell you that the document that we were provided is what you all have in your packet, and that does not include the recommended language.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Please, Supervisor Wingren.
How can we be discussing and possibly voting on something and we don't know what it is? That's not fair to the board. It's certainly not fair to the public, who has a right to know what their government is doing. And it's not fair to the people that this supposedly is going to help. I'm not even going to speak to the fact this is a week done. This committee was formed 2 years ago and has done nothing. By now, it's not well prepared. I say we had to send it back and do it right, or it's illegal.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. And to his point, to Supervisor Hens, it's up to the board, the body, to decide this, but I would suggest that the board postpone it, actually, to March 15th, because, correct me if I'm wrong, the committee actually approved the language, but we don't have the correct document of what they approved in front of us.
I don't, again, that's what Supervisor Norton is saying, and I have no reason to doubt him, but the document that was forwarded to me after the committee meeting is what is included in your packets.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to propose bonus to the March 15th meeting and
There's a motion and a second to postpone to the March 15th meeting. It is debatable, so that is the discussion going forward. Is there any county board supervisor who wanted to discuss the motion to postpone to the March 15th meeting? Supervisor, I'm gonna recognize then Supervisor Schellinger. Please go ahead, Supervisor Schellinger. There are a number of lights on, but we're specifically talking about the postponement. So I'll recognize Supervisor Schellinger, please, specifically regarding postponement.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would just like us to determine whose responsibility it's going to be for getting the correct version into the next meeting, because I think this is at least the second time we've had a problem where a committee has changed something and it has come back to the board without the proper modifications made. So I just want us to all be on the same page about whose responsibility that is.
Corporation Council.
Yeah, I think that has to be the Corporation Council to determine whether or not they voted on a specific motion and package, and if so, then what that is, and that's what would come to this body, because that's what the actual committee approved.
And
We shouldn't have any other version beyond what the committee approved.
And hopefully the minutes are prepared. Now, I know Chris View, I believe, is online via Zoom, so he might be able to provide some other information.
They are published and available on the website right now, and they do indicate, as Mr. Norton said, that those two changes were made.
Actually, there were two changes or more, because I believe this committee had indicated 3 suggestions.
But to answer the question, the Corporation Council will work and clarify with the director of that department.
Thank you.
In regards to that. So, fair question. Is there any other county board supervisor in regards to the motion to postpone to the March 15th meeting? Anyone on Zoom in regards to the motion to postpone to March 15th?
Mr. Lautenschlager is raising his hand.
Okay, very good. So I'll first call on Supervisor Lautenschlager, then I'll call on Supervisor Reed. Please go ahead, Supervisor Lautenschlager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're just postponing it till the next meeting. Is it going to go back to the committee for the changes? Or is
No.
just the corporate council going to change it?
No, the motion to postpone means that this.
It's going back to
This
committee?
resolution would come back to this body, not the committee, as of
Okay.
March 15th. Ideally with the correct version that was approved by the committee, because that was the intent in the first place.
Okay, so with the correct version, we will get.
Correct.
All right,
Now,
thank
if
you.
there's uncertainty, of course, of what that version is, well, then we're going to get a report on March 15th as to what that is, and then, of course, we wouldn't necessarily, as a body, want to vote on that. We don't know
All
that
right,
yet.
thank you.
That'll be determined between tonight and the 15th.
All right.
Good question, Supervisor Lautenschlager. Very good. Supervisor, I know there was one other, Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Binder.
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting, but I know that I gave Mandy the notes of the corrections that we wanted, and I know the committee did go and make the corrections. Apparently, we got the wrong document, and why that is, I don't know, but I agree with Mike. Let's just bring it back at the next county board meeting with the correct paperwork, so you can see that the corrections were made. The committee did basically take everything that was discussed in consideration. They redid it, and unfortunately, we got the wrong document here tonight.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder. Now, just to clarify, Supervisor Fari, you have your hand up. Would you like to speak on the motion to postpone?
No, sir. My comments were the same as Supervisor Egan's. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Next, I'll call on Supervisor Gabbert. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbert.
Let's see. I'm glad it's going back somewhere, because I do think that the changes weren't made, so I respect Supervisor Norton for making that motion. If we're going to do this, we got to do it right. And since it's taken so long, another 2 weeks is not going to be a hazard. But I do think we're doing the right thing to turn it back and get it cleaned up so that we have some document in front of us that we can vote yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbert. I see no other call-ins for discussion on the motion to postpone to the March 15th meeting, so we'll do a voice vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
With one nay vote, that motion carries. Moving on to the next item, we're on the top of the second page. And that's resolution number 271-02, 2022. Proclaim April 2022 as National County Government Month. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Norton.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 271-022022. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 271-02, 2022. Please go ahead, Supervisor
Thank you.
Norton.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would like to ask the Corporation Council to do, and I agree with the county executive, how do we make this a permanent thing? And when I say permanent, what I would wish after them to make permanent, that somehow, it's put on our calendar and it says April is automatically National Government Month. I will also further say, before I give the Corporation Council to speak, it's my hope, I did get a email from Ethan from the executive's office after us. They have some things planned, social media. It's my hope that they reach out to the various departments. Everyone here on a different committee, you find different ways to showcase county government next month. It doesn't have to be the same way, it doesn't have to be on the same day, but I think it has to be done in some way. I mean, we are getting out of COVID and all that, and that's what I'd like to see. But my general question to you, Corporation Council, Mary Ann, is what do I do, or what can I do to make this April designate National County Government Month in Winnebago County?
Supervisor Norton, I'll go ahead and provide you a suggestion, and if the Corporation Council agrees, then you can decide if you want to make that motion.
Okay.
But what you could do is on line 15, after April 22, you could add the words, "in all future months of April in perpetuity as National County Government Month," and continue with that.
Well done, yeah, well done.
Does that sound good, Corporation Council?
Yes, but you should also reflect that in the caption, line 3.
Yes, absolutely, and she's absolutely correct, thank you, and that's why she's the Corporation Council,
Okay.
to include that in line 3.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll make that motion as you said it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to amend the resolution, and I will word it again, so it's on lines 3 and 15. On line 3, it'll be after April 2022. On line 15, it will also be after April 22. It'll be adding the words, "and all future months of April in perpetuity." Any discussion on that amendment? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote.
I raised my hand, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I apologize, Supervisor Wingreen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Wingreen.
I just like to say that we have to be aware of unintended consequences here. This is a really good idea. I applaud it. And I think it's a great reason to get more publicity about county government. And I know that Mr. Norton has been a champion of that, and I praise him for that. Like with our 4th of July resolution, we do it every year, but use that as a reason and a vehicle for getting more publicity. If you pass this now and say forever, then in the future, it's just forgotten. So now, the way it is, every year you pass this, it gives you, you can send out a press release, you can create events and list what they are. So I would suggest we don't do that.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingreen. Any other discussion
Could
on the
I
amendment?
just briefly, to his point, I don't think it's going to publicize county government. I think it's the way of informing the public of what this county government does.
Yeah.
It is my hope that in future years that we find to have activities throughout the year. And like I say, I would hope that whatever activities we have in this coming April, a month from now, I would hope put on a website that can be viewed. So I look at this way of educating. If one thing I've heard in the last year and a half or 2 years is people are not aware of what county government does, and they want to be better informed, and they want to be more included. And this is just one step, and that's why I'm bringing it in. I could have brought on the same resolution I've done in past, Mr. Chairman, and just proclaiming it National County Government Month. What I intended, and I said that 2 years ago, is I was looking for the county government, the executive or administration, to find activities to show off the different departments. And I'm not trying to say, hey, airport, show someone. Each different department, if they can, find a way. And maybe eventually they can do it the whole year. So I don't want to just publicize county government. I want to educate what county government does.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Wingren, would you like to speak again?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree with Mr. Norton, definitely. But how do you have month and then he says educate all year? I agree we should do it all year. This is a focus on the month. I understand that too. But I'm just, something to think about. If you want to, whatever you want to do, that's fine.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. I'll next call on Supervisor Hintz, specifically on the amendment.
I think this is a great idea. I think the amendment's a great idea. I just want to question the wording. Do we need to get rid of the word national? Just have it as county government month? Because how are we making a national county government month? We should be making a county government month. We're a county entity.
That's a reasonable point, Supervisor Hintz. What we'll do is we'll finish up this amendment, and then I'll give you an opportunity, the first one, if you want to decide to amend that.
Thank you.
Very good. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in regards to the amendment of adding the verbiage and all future months of April in perpetuity on lines 15 and 3 after April 2022? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. So that is correct. That's specifically only on the amendment to add that language on line 15 and 3. So we are back on the main motion as amended. I'm going to give you the opportunity of Supervisor Hintz to continue with his thought and potential suggestion.
I would like to make a motion from line 3 to line 15 to strike the word national, as we are not a national body, and just have it say county government month, not national county government month.
I'll second the motion.
Very good. So there's a motion and a second to remove the word national on line 3 before county and line 15 also before county. So that is our discussion going forward. I see one call. I see Supervisor Powers who would like to call. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. March 21st is World Down Syndrome Day. That's what it's called. It's called, even if we're only celebrating something locally or in your own church or in your own community, it's still called World Down Syndrome Day. And this is called National County Government Month. And so we may not be a national entity, but it's called National County Government Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next, I'll call on Supervisor Cox. Please go ahead, Supervisor Cox.
Okay. I agree that there are entities that will take on the word world or national, but the fact is that as a national county month, we may be stepping on another national or somebody else wanting the April as a national month as well. So we haven't checked that, I don't think. In order to call it a national county month, we need to know that we've got the month for that purpose, and then I think you have to go to a national level to get it approved. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor Cox. Next speaker, I'll call on Supervisor Wingren in Zoom. Please go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
I'm sorry, I lowered my hand, sorry.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Next, I'll call on Supervisor Schellinger, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this resolution could have included one more line of clarity. This is National County Government Month is something that NACO puts out every year. It is a thing that NACO encourages counties to participate in. My understanding is that that has always been in April of every year, and I assume that this was done in line with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Schellinger. Next speaker is Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you. I just concur. Supervisor Schellinger said what I was going to say. The reason it's National County Government Month is what NACO, and as far as I've been NACO, that's what they designate it as. So that's why it's April. I'm not totally opposed. You know, I no feeling either way with the amendment, but that's why it's National County Government Month is April.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Next speaker is Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Snyder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Actually, I'm good. Supervisor Norton answered the question.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Stafford. Next speaker is Supervisor Snyder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I used my handy-dandy little iPad that I'm going to be turning in here pretty quick, and I Googled it. Is there a National County Government Day or month? And the first thing that came up, it says National County Government Month, NCGM, held each April, is an annual celebration of county government. Since 1991, the National Association of Counties has encouraged counties to actively promote the services and programs they offer. Counties can schedule activities anytime during the month. So it is a national thing, and it's just our hope that we can promote it here in Winnebago County. So I urge that you vote yes.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder.
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw my second.
Very good. So it's withdrawn, which means we don't have actually a motion on the table right now. That's only for the amendment. That's only for the amendment for the national. So we're still on the main motion as amended with the additional language and all future months of April in perpetuity. So we are back to that. Any discussion in regards to that resolution as amended? Okay, seeing none, we're then going to attempt to do a voice vote. We'll see how we do. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. That motion carries. We'll move on to the next item. That's resolution number 272-02-2022. Commendation for Dawn Lett. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen. We have it on from my end, but it's...
There it is. Okay, I move for resolution 272-02-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 272-02-2022. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Dawn has worked for Parkview for many years, starting in December 1987, and is now retired effective 2/2/22. She has shown dedication to so many residents during her time as a CNA and tremendous commitment to the facility and to Winnebago County. Dawn will be missed by many coworkers, residents, and their family members, but we realize that she deserves to take her well-earned retirement. Everyone who has worked with Dawn wishes her a great retirement, especially the staff she has worked with for many years on Prairie Side 2. Please join me in congratulating Dawn for her years of service.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 272-02-2022, commendation for Dawn Lett. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, that's resolution number 273-02-2022, commendation for Deborah Ryan. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you. I move for resolution 273.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 273-02-2022. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Parkview Health Center in September 1985. She is now retired after more than 36 years helping our residents at Parkview. Deborah is known for her kindness, compassion, adaptability, and her positive attitude. She provided excellent resident care and always provided that something extra. Residents and employees alike will miss Deborah's presence. We wish her the greatest happiness in her retirement.
Thank you Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 273-02, 2022. Commendation for Deborah Ryan. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Moving on down to the next resolution. Resolution number 274-02, 2022. Commendation for Judy Steckbauer. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen. There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 274-02, 2022. Please proceed, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Judy started her journey with Winnebago County in December of 1982 as a clerk typist in the Public Health Office. After 7 years, she transferred to the Finance Department and served as an Account Receivables Clerk 2. Then in April of 1994, Judy accepted the position of Deputy Veteran Service Officer, where she served until her retirement at the end of a 39-year career. Judy has been the steady rock of the Veteran Service Office for many years and has guided the department through numerous leadership changes. She has supported the veterans and their families in too many ways to count. She will be greatly missed by the veterans of Winnebago County. In her retirement, Judy looks forward to sunny days on her deck and long walks with her dogs, and also hopes to enjoy a bit of traveling to warm weather destinations.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 274-02, 2022. Commendation for Judy Steckbauer. Any discussion? I'll call on Supervisor Schneider. Please go ahead, Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of the Veteran Service Commission, I can only echo what Joel just said. We miss Judy a lot already, and will continue to do so. But she earned her retirement. She took care of us all amazingly well. Happy retirement, Judy.
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 274-02, 2022. Commendation for Judy Steckbauer. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next resolution. It's resolution number 275-02, 2022. Commendation for Mary Byer. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Resolution 275-02, 2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 275-02, 2022. Please proceed, Supervisor Rasmussen.
Mary was a dedicated, loyal CNA at Parkview Health Center for over 30 years. She had a wonderful rapport with the residents she cared for and always went above and beyond to make them feel special. Mary is witty, with a great personality that made her peers enjoy working with her as well. Parkview was fortunate to have such a hardworking, compassionate, caring employee to care for the residents. Congratulations on your retirement, Mary. You will be missed.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So there was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 275-02, 2022. Commendation for Mary Byer. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to the next resolution. That's resolution number 276-02, 2022. Authorize a capital project for the Winnebago County Parks Department to engage in engineering, design, and permitting for the Grumman Boat Landing at a cost of $185,000, funded with either a transfer from the undesignated general fund balance or an advance from the general fund to be reimbursed with a subsequent bond issue. For that, I will call on Supervisor Konecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask for the approval of resolution 276-02-2022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 276-02, 2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. We're having a little trouble with some of the mics, even though I'm turning them on, as you can see, so we'll continue to try to work with that. Very good. So we'll open it up for any discussion. I know that Director Briest is available on this call, and he'd be available to give an update. Would you like that, Supervisor Konecki?
Absolutely.
Very good. Director Bariste, if you perhaps could give an overview and update in regards to the project?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and County Board Supervisors. In your agenda this evening, there was a memo that went over a little bit more details of the project, regards to some of the details. I'll take just 2 to 3 minutes just to more or less update you on kind of give a recap of the timeline, but then also update you as there's been more recent events and kind of update you on the future and what the plan for the project going forward would be. Just as a reminder, this project started in December of 2020 when the County Parks Department engaged in a public input survey after residents came to the Parks Department and to the County Board with a request for renovating and improving the Grumman Boat Landing. And then we also hosted a public input session in January of 2021 or last year. And through that process, we worked with Ayers and Associates, which is in your packet, the estimate from last year and the concept design from last year. That estimate and concept design has not changed, and that was presented at the March County Board meeting of 2021. So since then, staff has been working with the residents and working also through the potential funding mechanisms for this project. In December of 2021, the NRDA approved a grant for Winnebago County up to $400,000 for this project to get us started. Now in January of 2022, in February, we went to the Parks and Recreation Committee and the Personnel and Finance Committee. The goal of the current work, the engineering permit and the permitting, is we would like to go for a Wisconsin DNR Recreational Boating Fund grant. These grants are due in June and September. The best opportunity and the first opportunity is June 1st to submit for applications. In order to submit for an application for a grant, we do have to submit permits, which is a little different than most Wisconsin DNR grants, as usually you can go off of what we currently have, an estimate and a concept design. So we do have to do a little bit more engineering. We do have to submit permits to the Wisconsin DNR. Our goal is to apply for $525,000 in grant dollars from the Wisconsin DNR with using and leveraging the funds that the NRDA allocated in the amount of $400,000. The update since the Personnel and Finance Committee is due to the timing, obviously, for getting permits and engineering or put together for the June 1st deadline. We did solicit for proposals from engineering firms for this project, just in case the project would be approved. We did receive those proposals last week, Friday, and I just wanted to at least report that the proposals came in within budget, and the engineering firms were confident that we could get the permits in for that June 1st deadline. And then at that point in August, the Wisconsin, the DNR meets and decides on these grants, and we wouldn't bring back this project for final approval for construction until we know about the grant process and if the grant is awarded and where that puts us in our funding. So this project wouldn't come back for the construction until probably sometime in fall. I just wanted to, since some of that wasn't in the memo, I just wanted to at least give a 2 to 3 minute snapshot. I can help answer any other questions.
Thank you, Director Briest. So we did have a motion. I believe we had a second. Very good. So we'll open it up for discussion from any county board supervisor. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item, that's resolution number 277-02-2022. Authorize the creation of a Winnebago County ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission. For that, I will call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 277-02-2022.
Second.
Very good. There was a motion and there was a second to approve resolution number 277-02-2022. Authorize the creation of a Winnebago County ARPA Strategy and Outcomes Commission.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll open it up for any discussion. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
In talking with Corporation Counsel about this, my notes here, one little change, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to it that I talked to the members of the committee about. on line 35, where it says Director of Finance, that after that, we would add who shall serve as a non-voting staff person.
Who shall? Very good. Was there a second? Very good. So there's a motion and a second. Now, this is a friendly amendment. Is everyone going to be comfortable with that? Otherwise, we'll do debate. Because he's asking for it to be essentially a friendly amendment. Is everyone comfortable with that? Is everyone comfortable with that on Zoom? Okay. Very good. So we'll allow that as a friendly amendment. So just so everyone's on the same page, then on line 35, it would say after Director of Finance, it would say who shall serve as a non-voting staff member. Of course, that will be included in the main motion as we vote eventually as well. Okay? So any other discussion? I'll next call on Supervisor Rasmussen, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
That was all I had.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Next is Supervisor Nussbaum, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a power grab of, it's big government trying to control local government. I would be very, very careful. I'm gonna vote no for this, but I would suggest that this committee, corporate counsel, take a very good look at the law. I would look at U.S. government of the Treasury, coronavirus, local fiscal recovery fund award terms and conditions, and I would specifically look at 9A and 15A and B, because you're getting into a covenant that with the federal government, and it's just given federal government more control over us, and I think it's a bad thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Next speaker is Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Fari on Zoom. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to make an amendment on line 35, after Director of Finance, add, and 2 additional Winnebago County employees, with 1 being from the Health/Human Services Department.
And if you could please repeat that again to make sure we all heard it correctly.
Okay. After Director of Finance, add, and 2 additional Winnebago County employees, with 1 being from Health/Human Services Department.
Is there a second? That motion fails for a lack of a second. So we're still on the main motion with the friendly amendment of the verbiage, who shall serve as a non-voting staff member after Director of Finance on line 35. So next I'll call on Supervisor Fari, followed by Supervisor Binder. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, I also have concerns. I have a copy of the original resolution that was presented by Mike Collard to the P&F committee. You should be aware the P&F committee amended the resolution using their own language. Now, my concern is that we're going to have a new county board chairman. We're going to have a new chairman of the P&F committee. And I think the discretion of appointment of the county supervisor should be at the new chairman's prerogative. To address my concern specifically, on line 33, it states at the end of the sentence, Chair of the Personnel and Finance Committee. The committee decided to put that language in there because they want the chairman of their committee to be automatically added. I'm of the opinion that should be at the discretion of the new chairman. That's my concern. So I offer this amendment. Delete the word chair of the Personnel and Finance Committee. That would be line 33, 34. Delete the word 3 and add the word 4. So it would be 4 additional county supervisors selected by the board.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
So there's a motion and a second to amend it so that on line 33 and 34, we'll be removing the chair of the Personnel Finance Committee, and on line 34, replacing the word 3 with 4 before the word additional. So that's the amendment we'll be discussing going forward. Very good. Anything further, Supervisor Fari?
No, sir. I think that addresses my concerns. Thank you.
Very good. So next, I will call on Supervisor Binder, followed by Supervisor Powers, and then Supervisor Rasmussen. So please go ahead, Supervisor Binder.
I think the purpose for the Finance Committee Chair to be on that committee was to oversee the projects so that when they came in, we could keep a tally of how much money was coming and being requested. It was brought up before, when we talked about it like a couple months previously, that I think Vicki Fitzgerald said that she thought that the chair should be a part of that committee, and we just took the advice of the staff at that time. We did add it to the language now, but I think it's a good addition. You know, we don't know who the chairman's going to be of the Finance Committee come April 15th when we reorganize. So it's not like the Finance Committee's trying to pick an individual that they're going to guarantee a seat at the table. And this committee has nothing more than the recommendations to the county board. The committee cannot spend $1 of this ARPA funds. You know, right now, I have several things I would like us to be working on. There's no committee to turn them into. So once this committee is formed, every one of us will be able to turn our projects in that we think are worthwhile of this $33 million and move these projects forward. Right now, we have nothing. We've basically got the money in April, and we have basically not made one step. We have no committee. We have, no way of basically bringing anything to this county board. The Land and Water brought a project forward. We said, well, why don't you wait till this committee's formed? It's like we need to get moving on this, and I think that having the finance chair on that committee would be an asset to the committee. We're not picking an individual. We don't know who it'll be. We don't have no idea who the future chair of that committee will be. That'll be up to the committees on committees to decide who's even going to be on that committee. So I think the way it's written is fine, and we should pass this so that we can start basically planning on how we're going to spend our $33 million, our ARPA funds, so that we have time to look at these projects and budget to make sure we get the most for our money and the best projects move forward.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder. Next speaker is Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Rasmussen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I reread what I was going to say, and I see that I was wrong, so I'm withdrawing.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Supervisor Rasmussen, please go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bender kind of said mostly what I was going to, but I would just add also that it was put on there because there's a lot of rules on how this money should be spent. There'll be rules, probably changes as it goes along, just like the CARES Act did. And we just felt that having people close to the Finance Committee was a good idea to maintain those rules and make sure everything was done correctly. That was the only reason. And again, we have no idea who that person will be. It will not be me.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. So I don't see any other discussion, so I'm going to reword what we're actually voting on. So it's the amendment to remove on lines 33 and 34, Chair of the Personnel and Finance Committee, and replace on line 34 the word 3 with 4 prior to the word additional. So that's what you'd be voting on. If you want to make that change, you would vote aye. If you don't, you would vote nay. We're going to try to do a voice vote. If there's any question about it, we will go to a roll call vote. So If you are in support of the amendment, say aye.
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 If you are opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
We're going to do a roll call vote. We're going to do a roll call vote with the clerk, whether you're on Zoom or in person, just so that there's no confusion and we're all clear on the vote. Oh, it's a fair point. Vice Chair Egan, just to clarify, okay? If you are in favor of making that language change on line 33 and 34, then you are going to want to say aye. If you don't want to make that language change, then you'd want to say nay. All right? Please. I'll restate it one more time. So we are on the amendment for, on lines 33 and 34, removal of Chair of the Personnel and Finance Committee language and replace the word 3 with the word 4 on line 34 before the word additional. If you want to make that change when the clerk calls the roll, you're going to say aye. If you do not, and you want to leave that in, then you want to say nay. Let's go.
Supervisor Kapinski? Nay. Supervisor Run?
Nay, no.
Supervisor Borchert? Nay. Supervisor Eisen? Nay. Supervisor Ramos?
No.
Mr. Chair, I can't hear Sue. Okay, I'll speak louder. Supervisor Lenz?
Aye.
Supervisor Wise? Oh, I'm sorry, he's not in attendance. Supervisor Nussbaum?
No abstaining.
Abstain. Supervisor Stafford?
Aye.
Supervisor Albrecht?
No.
Supervisor Gabbard? No. Supervisor Linder?
No.
Supervisor Conrad?
No.
Supervisor Shorsey? Oh, again, not in attendance. Supervisor Gordon?
Aye.
Supervisor Winburn?
No.
Supervisor Lautenschlager?
No.
Supervisor Norton?
Aye.
Supervisor Hinz?
Aye.
Supervisor Zelmer?
Aye.
Supervisor Stellinger?
No.
Supervisor Luck?
No.
Supervisor Powers? No. Supervisor Cox?
No. Nay.
Supervisor Finch? All right, Supervisor Youngquist?
Aye.
Supervisor Farley?
Aye.
Supervisor Rasmussen?
No.
Supervisor Keller?
No.
Supervisor Egan?
No.
Supervisor Ellis?
No.
Supervisor Snyder?
Aye.
And Supervisor Jost? Yes? Okay. I'm sorry, was Jost the aye or?
Yes. Yes. I'm yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Finch, are you there now?
Yes. Yes. Did you get me?
Yes, we did, Supervisor Finch.
Good. Have a good night.
More transparency, we know that Capitol police officers themselves are being briefed more from their leadership.
And just so everyone's clear, it's a simple majority either way for it to pass or fail. So there were 10 ayes, 20 noes, and 1 abstention. So that fails, it does not pass. which means that that language remains in. So now we are back on the original motion with only the change on line 35 after Director of Finance to say, who shall serve as a non-voting staff member. Any further discussion on the resolution with that friendly amendment? Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question for the Corporation Council. At any time that this, after it gets passed and signed, if the commission wanted to change the makeup of the commission, would they have to come back to this county board to get approval to do that?
Just give me a minute, I just want to read this. This created to be chosen from the new county board. That the Arbor strategy will consist of the county executive and 3 additional members. So you're saying if they want to add or reduce the number,
If they want to add, reduce, if they want to change the makeup in any shape, way, or form,
then it should
would
come
they
back
have
to
to come back to this county board to get that
It should come back to the
approved?
county board.
And that would have
Based
to-
on the wording as is now, yes.
And how, what,
Let's give the Corporation Council
Hold
an
on one
opportunity to
second.
speak, and Supervisor Norton, they have the floor.
1 second. So, based on the wording of this resolution, if there was any desire to change the number of people on the committee, because this resolution specifically references a certain number, then yes, you would have to come back to ask for a change.
so let me give you a, for instance, not that, let's say 4 or 5 months from now, they say they want to guarantee, they want to make sure that one member of this commission represents local government. Would they, and could they do that specifically? Could the members, could anyone on this board at that time do that? And that's,
Well-
and I hate to use an instance, but that's what I'm saying. Not just the number, but the makeup, and that's my quick answer.
Well, then the
on
question is, what is local government?
Okay, all right.
That's, I mean,
Okay, that's fair. I'm
I mean, an argument could be made, this is local government. You're on the front lines here.
okay. Yeah, I think I'm satisfied, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Supervisor Cox, did you want to say something? Please, go ahead.
What that vote, is that a 2/3 vote in order to change the board? Or change the
I
board's-
would need to look. I don't want to talk off the top of my head. I'm not sure of the answer to that question.
That's a fair response. Thank you, Supervisor Cox. Any other discussion before we go to a vote on the original resolution with the friendly amendment language on lines 35, adding who shall serve as a non-voting staff member after Director of Finance? Any other discussion? Okay, we're going to, Supervisor Eisen, please go ahead.
Call for recorded vote, please.
Very good. We will do so. I'll ask the county clerk to call the roll. We're going to give some opportunity to correct some technical audio challenges, and then we'll go. Very good. We'll have the clerk call the roll. When she asks your name, if you want to approve of the resolution with the added language on line 35, you're going to say aye. If you don't, you'd say nay.
Okay, Supervisor Konetsky? Aye. Supervisor Brunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Borchert? Aye. Supervisor Eisen?
Aye.
Chairman Ramos?
Aye.
Supervisor Lenz?
Aye.
Supervisor Nussbaum? Supervisor Stafford?
Aye.
Supervisor Albrecht? Supervisor Gabbard? Supervisor Binder? Supervisor Conrad?
Aye.
Supervisor Gordon? Supervisor Gordon? Supervisor Wingren? Supervisor?
I was an aye.
You and I, okay, thanks, Julie. Supervisor Wingren? Supervisor Lautenschlager?
Aye.
Supervisor Norton? Aye. Supervisor Hintz? Aye. Supervisor Zelmer?
Aye.
Supervisor Skellinger? Supervisor Buck? Aye. Supervisor Powers? Aye. Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Finch?
Aye.
Supervisor Youngquist?
Aye.
Supervisor Fari?
Aye.
Supervisor Rasmussen? Supervisor Keller?
Aye.
Supervisor Egan? Supervisor Ellis? Supervisor Snyder? Supervisor Jose?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Who did I miss? Supervisor Wingren?
Stand and send an unmistakable signal to the
Okay. Who's the name? Okay, then yes, 29-1.
That motion carries 29-1, required a simple majority for passage, so that is approved. Moving on to the next item, it's the last resolution on the second page. That's resolution number 279-022022. Authorize renewal of airport user access agreement between Basler Turbo Conversions LLC and Winnebago County. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Gabbard.
Thank you, Chairman Ramos. I move for approval of Resolution 27902-2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 279-02-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on to the next item, that's the top of page 3. It's resolution number 280-02-2022. Authorize agricultural permit between Experimental Aircraft Association and Winnebago County. I'll once again call on Supervisor Gabbard.
Thank you, Chairman Ramos. I move for approval of Resolution 28002-2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 280-02-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next resolution. That's resolution number 281-02-2022, extending project positions in the Public Health Department. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Norton.
I move for resolution 281-022022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 281-02-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. I'll call on Supervisor Nussbaum. Please go ahead, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just heard on the way over here tonight that the last monthly count on corona cases is down 83%. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item. That's resolution number 282-02-2022. Extend additional pay to care providers at Parkview Health Center who provide direct care to COVID-positive residents. I'll call next on Supervisor Ellis. Please go ahead, Supervisor Ellis.
Thank you, Chairman. Move for Resolution 282-022022.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 282-02-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask the question, the woman kind of aligns what she's talking about. Have any other departments asked to have hazardous pay for either jailers or any other ones? That's my general question, because I think the woman has a point. If we're going to give it to the Parkview Health Center workers, I don't think we should be denying other departments, but you may tell me, Mike, and I'm willing to listen, maybe those departments have to make those requests, and I'll wait to hear your answer.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. I'll call on Director Collard to potentially answer that question.
Well, there were several proposals brought forth in the first half of 2020 regarding different forms of hazard pay. Nothing really quite the same as the one that was approved by the Personnel and Finance Committee and the board, which is the nurses at Parkview who are providing direct hands-on care. There were at least a couple of proposals brought forth to provide some form of hazard pay for employees who were engaged in interactions with the public. Those proposals tended to get very broad as departments were taking the position that if anyone's covered, everyone should be covered. And I think on that basis largely, not to speak for the committee, but ran into trouble with the Personnel and Finance Committee getting their approval. This one for Parkview was the one that was most targeted to a very small and specific set of individuals, since most of the time we were very fortunate not to have COVID positive residents. And when we did, it's a small number of nurses providing the direct care since they were isolated in a particular unit. So perhaps because it was that targeted, that one did receive approval of the committee. And in fact, I think the committee raised the amount and forwarded that to the county board, which did approve it. So that none came up exactly the same way this did. For instance, the sheriff's office didn't ask for the same kind of hazard pay that Parkview did. There were some broader proposals.
Thank you, Director Collard, and thank you, Supervisor Norton. Next speaker is Supervisor Binder, followed by Vice Chair Egan. Please go ahead, Supervisor Binder.
I will vote to extend this, but I did ask Mr. Colliard about the correction officers in the jail, and he told me because they were under contract is why we couldn't do that. But we've basically gave them a substantial increase to keep the people at the jail. We opened the contract up for that. Now, next month, there's going to be a lateral transfer policy. We're going to be opening the contract up for that. I'm sure if we wanted to offer the correction officers, I'm not sure, but at one time I know they had over 40 COVID patients or tested positive in the jail. They're at high risk. They're taking care of people that they need to use extra precautions on. I'm sure if they basically accepted our money for the wage increases and the lateral transfer policy, they'd be more than happy to accept a bonus for taking care of the COVID inmates that are tested positive. So I would like Mr. Colliard to look into doing that and maybe bring that, the sheriff could bring that back at a different month. Tonight, we got this in front of us, and I think we should extend this. They are taking added risks. I think the sheriff's department has actually more risk in the jail than what you have at Parkview, and I think they should both be entitled to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder. Next speaker is Vice Chair Egan, followed by Supervisor Powers. Please go ahead, Vice Chair Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask Director Collard something to do besides with the COVID-19. How is our study going with our stage for wages and this and that? We had voted to go ahead and start the wage study, and I just want to know where that is.
We haven't been able to get to that yet, frankly, just because of the press of other matters. It's still on the table for consideration this year. It obviously won't be done by budget time, but I think that would have been an extremely ambitious time frame regardless. So it's still on the drawing board, but we have not yet sent out those requests for proposals.
Thank you. Because I think that might help on some of these other ones. I'm sure like the highway department, that they go out and see to these people, and we got all kinds of different departments that could get in this COVID thing. But I guess, like we just said, it all depends upon how they go ahead and word it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director Collard, and thank you, Vice Chair Egan. Next speaker is Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Buck. Please go ahead, Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also responding to the woman who said, you know, it's not fair because other county employees are not being put ahead for COVID hazard pay. And I would suggest that, because I plan on voting in favor of this resolution, that I would suggest that if we pass this for healthcare providers at Parkview, it sets a precedent that the next department head who asks for hazard pay for his or her employees on the county have a better shot at getting it. And I think we need to start somewhere and not say, well, because everybody's not getting it, nobody's getting it. So I'd say, let's vote for the healthcare providers at Parkview and allow other department chairs to put forward their department people for hazard pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker is Supervisor Buck, followed by Supervisor Fari on Zoom. Please go ahead, Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we're competing in with the private market, right? I have a wife that's in healthcare, many family members that are in healthcare. The COVID frontline nurses and other healthcare people in the industry are getting raises, they're getting bonuses, this type of thing. You know, the discussion is brought up, well, what about the highway department? What about this department? I can tell you with 100% certainty that highway department workers in the private sector aren't getting big raises because they were dealing with COVID. So we're not comparing apples to apples there. We're working within the healthcare industry, and we're competing against other hospitals in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Buck. Next speaker is Supervisor Fari, followed by Supervisor Eisen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the same concerns, specifically how many employees were impacted by this $10 per hour increase. So I had a discussion with the administrator of Parkview, and I'm told only 2 to 4 employees. They have a special section that they have set aside for COVID patients. And these employees are registered nurses or CPN, so certified practical nurse. So I certainly will support this, but it is very limited to that special area of Parkview that deals with them. And once again, I was told it's only 2 to 4 employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. Next speaker is Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to confirm that the ARPA monies are available for this hazard pay.
I'll call on Acting Finance Director Collar.
The preliminary final rule on ARPA is, I think, 600 pages long. I haven't read them all, but it is my understanding that in general, hazard pay given to employees is probably a compensable project under ARPA.
Okay, so it's the hazard pay is not going to come off of the tax rolls. It's coming from money that we have in the bank available for such projects. Thank you.
Well, we would have to list it as an ARPA project and elect to use the money for that purpose, but I don't know why. I believe it probably would be compensable if we set up the project correctly.
Thank you, Director Collard, and thank you for the question, Supervisor Eisen. Next speaker is Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Zellmer. Please go ahead, Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, most of my questions were answered by Supervisor Fari, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Just one follow-up question. What was the basis for the $10 an hour? How was that decided? Do we look at like other places out there and use that as a determining factor, or we just kind of thought $10 was a good number?
Perhaps the Parkview administrator, is she in the call? Actually in the back of the room, Kara Gruber. Perhaps maybe you can have an opportunity to answer that question. I'll go ahead and open on your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could just speak a little closer to the mic.
Sure. I'm not 100% sure to the answer to that. That was before I became the administrator at Parkview. I do know that the original ask was for, like Mike Collard said, for $5 an hour additional, and then the county board did change that at the time to the $10.
And I should clarify, because to be fair to her, she wasn't in the position at that time, so I also want to give Director Collard, if he has any background in regards to it. Is there anything further you have to add?
No, I think that's really all I had to say too, is
Very
that
good.
there was a change made.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Administrator Green. Very good. So anything further, Supervisor Stafford?
I'm good, thank you.
Very good. Now Supervisor Zelmer, you once had your light on Zoom, but I no longer see it. I just wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity if you did have a question and your hand came down accidentally. Supervisor Zelmer, did you have any question or comment?
I've got a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. Fellow supervisors, I think that we should all vote in favor of this. We must show some compassion and empathy for these workers who have been certainly under stressful conditions. The money's there, so let's do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Zelmer. So I see no other call-ins. And
Hey, me, I do, Mr.
I
Chair.
apologize. Please go ahead, Supervisor Lautenschlager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to add on to Supervisor Fari's comments that, yes, this is only a limited amount of employees. It's like, he's right. It's only like about 2 to 4, whatever. And it's only when that unit is open. When we have no COVID patients in that unit, those nurses or those CNAs, whatever, they don't get that extra money. It's only when that unit is open and somebody's in there. So this isn't $10 an hour all the time. It's only when we have COVID patients in that unit. And Supervisor Fari is right. It's only, probably 4 at the max that'll get this money.
Thank you, Supervisor Lautenschlager. I think that's an important clarification, because this is only individuals who are working on that COVID unit when it's open, who are working with these individuals who are COVID positive their entire shift while they're working. So thank you for that clarification, Supervisor Lautenschlager. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll attempt to do a voice vote. If there's any uncertainty, we will go to a roll call. But, so when I call for the ayes, if you want to approve to extend the additional pay to the care providers at Parkview, you'd say aye. If you don't, you'd say nay. So
Aye.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And that motion passes. Moving on to the next item. And that's actually the final item this evening. It's resolution number 283-02-2022. Authorize a budget transfer for additional funding of $30,000 for the Winnebago County Facilities Department to remodel and update the district attorney's second and third floor office space in the Oren-Kin building. For that, I will call on Supervisor Keller on Zoom.
Thank you, Chairman Romers. I move for approval of Resolution 283-02-2022.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 283-02-2022. We'll open it up for any discussion.
Power in the world in everyday lives.
Seeing that, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. So that actually concludes our business for this evening. Our next meeting would be March 15th, so the next motion would be to Supervisor Albrecht for a motion to adjourn to our next meeting, which will be here in the courthouse on March 15th. Please go ahead, Supervisor Albrecht.
I move we adjourn till March 15th.
Second. There's a motion and a second to adjourn until March 15th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.